I'm the director for the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And the center has been in existence for about just under 2 years now. And our primary mission is empowering innovators to build successful ventures, which essentially means anybody who has an idea and any organization that wants to try out a new innovative idea, we partner with them. So in the individual's case, we provide them with space, we provide them with student employees as they flush out their concept to the next level, and then we connect them with legal, funding support, all of that. And the organizations that partner with us, we provide student employees, and this is an opportunity where an organization can take a concept where a large organization might say, well, we're not really ready to put a couple of $1 million into blockchain as a technology and figure out whether it is useful or not for us at this time. But then they can team up with us and create a small prototype or a product to see if this is really market ready or prime time for the organization. So from the organization's perspective, I would say think of us as an extended research and development arm for you guys to tap into the capabilities within the organization. So that's what CI is all about. We have had a tremendous run over the last few months with a lot of startups coming through us, solving some incredible problems in the space, still working on. So, and we have partners from all over, including the West Coast, Washington, DC, Baltimore, and we have even founders who have startup founders who come from Baltimore to tap into the resources that we have. So with that said, the Conversations in Innovation is a monthly session that we do where we bring together really incredible leaders from different areas to talk about innovations within the space. This started out as a small idea where the Harrisburg University students and faculty could hear about what are some of the innovations that's happening in the larger industry space. But since we started, and over the last, I think, 14 months since we have had these conversations, it has grown into a much larger geographic presence with people listening in from all over the world, and CEOs and startups from the region listening in, because there's been an incredible value in some of the ideas that has come through. And there has been follow-up connections that we have made, which helped both CI and the larger central Pennsylvania area. So with that, this topic, I have to say, when we put this topic, so we try to lay out the topics ahead. And so we had supply chain as one of the interesting topics because I did a startup in the space. So, it's something that I'm close to, and I thought this would be an interesting one for a lot of people who are in the supply chain space or the technology space. But what has happened is since the pandemic, this has become like a common topic around that is discussed around the kitchen table, and most people know what supply. I don't know if they know the details of it, but most people talk about supply chain and why, because of supply chain issues, they can't get their kitchen redone or deck built or things like that. So today we have assembled a really cool panel, and what I'm hoping is that we get to understand what really is supply chain all about and where are we going with this. And maybe these leaders can give us some sense of when this will get more smoother. And I think, Jamal, who introduced us, our program manager, he made a comment last time we talked. He said he and a lot of people like him, the biggest question they have is, will we get our Christmas presents in time for our kids? So let's see if we can get these leaders to pin down on some of those questions. So with that, without much delay, I want to introduce you to the three panelists. We'll start off with a little bit background questions from them because a lot of our students and others listening in are also curious about their journey and how did they get to where they are. So we'll start there, and then we will dive into the supply chain questions. So it's my great pleasure to have Kyle Rice, Jamie Dozen, and Chuck Kukic, three leaders. So Chuck's company is a local one in this area. Jamie is with UPS. Kyle is with SAP NS2. So welcome all three of you. It's a great pleasure to have, and thank you for your time. And I'll start with Jamie first. So tell us a little bit about your current role, and what does that mean? Because many times the titles are also very, very confusing for a lot of people. Like when you're just listening in. So tell us a little bit about your role and your background.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah, so welcome everyone. I'm thrilled to be here. Jamie Dawson. I'm at UPS, Vice President of Global Procurement, and my team is responsible for the launch of supply chain technology solutions, specifically for our suppliers that we buy from. So on the procurement side, also process optimization. Interestingly enough, my team was the one on the forefront. As soon as the pandemic hit, we had to coordinate tackling how do we get all of these products from around the world. And we were on the front lines. We worked with our health and safety group. We worked with public affairs, which I really hadn't interacted with previously as part of procurement. And then our business operations to deal with real-time urgent needs in the community. So it's a team of people with backgrounds everywhere from finance to computers. I have a systems team and a group of experts, quite a few MBAs, and also people with business experience.
Thanks, Jamie. So from that, so Jamie mentioned a couple of things like optimization and the team. So Chuck, I want to talk to you or get a little bit background about you, because I think from your perspective, you have the larger role of looking at the challenges of the supply chain and dealing with this on the other side. So tell us a little bit about your role and the company.
Appreciate it, Jay. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm really looking forward to having this discussion. But so my name's Chuck Kukic. My role is General Manager of Delivery. We're a sustainable packaging division of Otter Products. You might know us obviously from the phone case side of the world, but we are a startup and a startup division within a company. And it's kind of exciting because we are at the forefront of circular economy, sustainability. We're getting to work with really cool technology like AI and robots and drone delivery and all sorts of fancy terms called, micro fulfillment centers and all these things that are trying to help the supply chain right now. So a lot of things, if you've ordered in particular, like e-commerce food right now. So if you go to your local grocery store and you put an order in on your phone, you might see our products. We're on the back end. We're basically a solution service provider in the end of the day, but we're a link in the chain of supply chain. So it's a really unique position to be in, especially as a startup and especially talking about sustainability. It's a very hot topic, and we get to talk to people like Walmart, Kroger, Loblaws, AstraZeneca, J&J. You're talking to big companies all the time, and even in an entrepreneurial way. So it's really exciting. So appreciate being here, Jay.
Thanks, Chuck. So Kyle, I know a little more background about Kyle's than Chuck and Jamie, because we have worked together on a project. So my first question is, are you in a secured facility right now? And can you share secrets and, just tell us a little bit about your role and your background, Chuck?
Well, there we go, Jay. So yes, I have been NS2 Labs, which is, to Jay's point, is wide open to the community, but there are parts of this facility that are not. So thanks for having me. I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm Kyle Rice. I'm the CTO of SAP National Security Services. So we're the part of SAP software. SAP is a big German software company, does a lot of supply chain, HR, kind of back-end management, different analytics. We focus primarily in the U.S. secure community. So we provide, support and services to the DoD, to public sector, to utilities, things of that nature, but primarily U.S. based. The idea is if you're looking for a little higher level of security and how you're getting your software and how you're dealing with those things. I also get to run NS2 Labs, which is the facility I'm in today. So most of my job is figuring out how do we take that technology base, which comes out of the parent SAP, and how do we apply that to solve more mission focused problems. So it's a fun gig that lets me deal in different areas, as Jay is alluding to.
Thanks, Carl. So so now everybody has heard kind of the high level, your role, your title. So now I want to delve a little bit deeper into what that means and how did you get here? What does the career journey look like for, so starting back again with Jamie, UPS is a large company. You are a vice president there, a senior executive there. So a couple of things I want to touch on. One, your career journey, how did you get there? But the second part is, as a woman executive, how do you see that? Was there specific challenges you faced, mentors, what does that all look like? And, because this all ties into a lot of the aspiring future leaders that are listening in, right? So tell us a little bit about your journey and what that looked like.
Thank you, Jay. So probably not a traditional view. UPS has a history of promotion from within. I actually had industry experience in advance of UPS. And, I originally thought I wanted to be an accountant, at one point a teacher, a lawyer, working computers. I really didn't know, right? So I began my career as an auditor. And what I will tell you is it was fantastic for me because it checked so many boxes. I was able to travel the world. I was able to use and really hone in on those skills that were so important to me. Turned out insatiable curiosity can be really valuable as an auditor, and really identified as I was building up my network, both within UPS and around the world, I gravitated to areas of business challenges. Really had opportunities to work in businesses within the company where we open and close the books every month. I did it, but it wasn't my joy and my heart. What I found I really was gravitating towards were new system launches, strategy type projects in areas where we were engaged in transformation. It's interesting, the whole conversation about women in leadership. When I first arrived almost 30 years ago now in a transportation company, I really didn't notice I was the only woman around the table because all I saw were men. And we didn't really talk about it. So it was something that evolved over time. No question. As we look at our teams and we think about building our teams, for me, the most important aspect is diversity of educational background, experience, and the collective wisdom that gets brought to the teams as a direct result of that is so absolutely critical. And that comes from a variety of elements. So that's a little bit about my journey. Thank you.
But was there unique challenge that you faced within this? Something that you can share.
Something interesting,
especially given your background as the auditor, and then in your current role, that full switch.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if it's unique to me. I think it's probably a journey that most people go through, is finding what gives you that confidence, and having that confidence in honing your skills is absolutely where you can find your voice and have that voice at the table. Sometimes probably the most difficult aspect was I wasn't always the tallest or the deepest voice in the room. So finding ways to be present and to be heard have continued to be really important for me.
Very cool. Thanks, Jamie. So, Chuck,
Thank
coming
you.
to you, um, I always believe, everybody's journey is kind of unique, and there are challenges everybody face, even though, in these days, people kind of talk about, these specific groups have more challenges and things like that. But what was your journey look like? And, what was your background? What did you start out with in this, technical side or business side? And how do you, transition over to the business side? And what did it all look like?
So for me, I have a unique journey as well. I actually am a classically trained CPG marketer by trade. So I have a master's in food marketing, and I've spent many, many years, probably in the tune of 24 years of innovation, strategy, and brand development. So that's where I really kind of honed my skills. Spent a long time at Hershey, got groomed as a general manager there. From there, my career propelled into some senior leadership roles internationally, and that's kind of my passion, is really to try to look at things and re-architect businesses from an innovation and strategy slant. So that was my claim to fame for the last 15 years, is really kind of my escalation of my career. Ironically, I'm probably the less tenure of the group of my newest role, because I've only been here since February, and this is the first non-food product I've ever worked on. Now, I've been a CEO, been a president, been VPs many times, but this is the first non-food product I've ever actually been involved in. My technical experience, my running of warehouses and supply chain businesses have led me to this career. So it's kind of a culmination of where I'm at today.
So the general manager, I mean, that's sometimes it seems like a catch-all title, like you're responsible for everything that goes wrong, and or so what is that role? What are the areas that you are responsible for as a general manager?
Sure. So I report to the CEO of Otter Products, and then obviously to the board of directors. So if you think about it in terms of like a president of a division, is kind of what they kind of a catch-all. I have everything from engineering. I have ID, which is industrial design. I have marketing, product line management, sales, business development. So I have the gamut. So basically, I have basically a little company within a large company, and that's kind of what we do. We do it all, and I'm responsible for it all. So when everything doesn't go well, it's my fault. So.
Right. Thanks, Jack. So Kyle, your title is probably the one that, pretty much everybody understands because it has been in existence for quite some time. But from a journey perspective, where did you start and what did that look like for you?
Yeah, no, I have to agree. I feel much more transparent than either Jamie or Chuck in terms of what I do. Yeah, so that's good and bad, I guess. But so I started out. I guess my career has really been a combination of a few intentional decisions and then a whole lot of just kind of pure chance, as I think all of us happens. So I think there were kind of two primary intentional inflection points. So I started out in college. I was an international business major. I went to American University in DC, and when I was in high school, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, and I was like, yeah, business sounds interesting, and international so much more interesting. So that was kind of my first foray. I did that actually through my junior year there, and then I realized that I found business incredibly frustrating. Mainly because it is there are no actual answers. I mean, it's a lot of whatever, you can do this, you can do that, whatever. It's a business, make your own decisions. And so it became very clear midway through my junior year that I wanted to pick up a technical degree, that was much more where my interests and my comfort level lay. So what I did, so American's actually a pretty good international business school. It's not a technical school by any means. And so I looked around for the degree that had the fewest number of credits, and it was still a technical degree. So I ended up a physics major because that had one less course requirement than chemistry. And at that point, I only had, a year and a half left, so I had to go quick. So that's how I got into that field. Pretty rapidly after that, I realized what I really liked was the computer science aspects of it. So I did go back and get my master's in computer science, just to kind of, the software development is really the part that interested me. But then I guess my second pivot was, and this has kind of got what me into the CTO gigs, is in my late 20s, I've been working primarily at system integrators, and those are, it's mostly government focused work. It's sort of government engineering by the hour. There's large companies, the Northrop Grumman and Raytheon and SEIC and Leidos, companies like that provide services hours to the government. And so I've been writing software for a number of years. I've been pretty successful with this. We've grown a lot of business. And so I ended up managing a whole bunch of people. And just because it felt like that's what was required to progress in your career there. But it became pretty clear to me I didn't actually like that very much. And so I took some kind of conscious steps to say, well, I don't actually want to run a large organization. What I want to do is I want to focus on the innovation, the technology, and the creating of things. And so I'm much more interested in the selling and the building than I was in the managing aspects. So that I kind of pivoted my career there, and I went focused much more on the technical evangelism and the kind of the ability to kind of set technical vision, which is what you need more as a CTO. And so that's kind of how I ended up where I am now. And that's, I haven't looked back. I mean, I do encourage people to, if you're not happy doing what you're doing, make that pivot, because it's much more fun.
Yeah. So one thing I was thinking was, between the three of you, there's amazing complementary strength that if I was doing a startup, the three of you would be like, amazing co-founders. Because in startups, you always say you need, different complementary strengths and being honest about your strengths and weakness. It's really unique. So one follow-up question, Kyle, because now people say every business is a technology business. And so the CTO CIO role is more of a, business innovation role now. You need to be more of, so you went away from business wanting to be in the technology, but I'm assuming now you are still more of a business person now.
Yes, and that is actually that's a very insightful point. We also have chief architect roles around here, and that is demonstrably a different position. That is the folks who are very pure in the technology and very deep in that. At the end of the day, my CTO gig is really a sales role. It is, essentially, how do you position the technology? How do you make sure that what we do can be sold and will be relevant to our customers? So yeah, it lets me stay deep and get to build things, but it is very much not for the technology. It is for the business. Yeah, that's a very solid point. So maybe there's something to that 2.5 years of international business work anyway.
Well, thanks, Kyle. So now let's talk about supply chain. So Jamie, right now, supply chain was the big talking point the last few months, and now with the whole topic of inflation coming on, and then people tying inflation to supply chain. So what's your, I want to start with the big perspective, like, from where you sit, what do you look at these trend lines or all these conversations or all these news headlines that freaks people out? And, what's your take on inflation, the supply chain problems, big view?
Yeah, so a lot packed into that. And big data is still coming in. That needs to be analyzed throughout how we all react. What we know now is if we can't manufacture and we can't get the inventory, there will be shortages. And what's left and available then becomes subject to higher prices. We've seen that. That's absolutely the first step in the supply chain. We can't get the raw materials. You referenced earlier home improvement projects and the aspects there. That's really what's generating the inflation right now is those scarcity of products.
So from the UPS perspective, from the whole logistics piece, right, the ground logistics, are you kind of in the middle waiting for, because we keep hearing about the containers, out there in the sea and, not getting to the port or whatever. So how does that impact the UPS business? I mean, are you like waiting for the products to get in? Or are you also touching the point where, it's being, I don't know, beyond the logistical delivery? Where does UPS fit in?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. You think about UPS, there are the small packages, the driver that you see that shows up at your door. But we have everything from an entire integrated network of forwarders. We actually have an ocean business as well. Lots of air products, and what really starts the entire process is that upstream supply chain component. Once those packages get into our network, they are getting they're getting delivered, prioritized if it's healthcare or something else that's absolutely critical. But solving those upstream supply chain issues really are what influence what gets into our network. As most of you know, since the pandemic, our system has been operating at peak capacity practically since March of 2020.
Thanks, Jamie. So I have we'll follow up with another question, but before that, Chuck, the same kind of question: the inflationary trends, the supply chain, the big picture. You are on the product side. How do you see the big picture, and like the timeline? Is the inflation, is the prices going to keep going up? What are you seeing, or what's your predictions?
So it's the perfect storm right now, Jay. As Jamie kind of made really good points, the upstream is the issue, and a lot of effect when you don't have labor to actually go out there and manufacture things. It becomes a very cyclical issue, right? So you don't have people at ports to receive products and do things. They are calling it the Great Resignation for a reason. And it's up and down. It's not even just blue collar labor, it's actually white collar labor as well. So you have this perfect storm, and then you have containers that are now stuck in locations. What people don't always realize is that you have containers not in the right location. So you might have the right container over in Singapore, but it's supposed to be down in Australia. And it's not in the right location. So you have a lot of things that are really kind of, like I said, the perfect storm. What's interesting is a great pandemic like we're in also creates innovation. And that's what you're seeing on the food and beverage and a couple other sides that are really kind of forcing people to be innovative and differentiated and thinking outside of a proverbial box. And this is where you have a new birth of a whole industry called micro fulfillment centers, and getting your groceries faster, and it's all done by robotics. So sometimes great tragedy also forces industries to really recreate themselves too.
So one quick follow-up question on that. So are you also seeing a switch from this far out manufacturing like in China and all of that to more of a localization move? And is that something that will happen quickly, or does that even change or has an impact?
History always repeats itself, Jay. So you'll see a very cyclical thing happen. We'll pull back depending on tariffs and trade, issues and things like, China's going through right now rolling blackouts. So you're getting 3 days production out of China at the moment because they have a coal issue from Australia. So there's all these different forces, factors that are happening right now. So will it change? Probably, but you're also, when you have your labor rates that are higher in more Western society, like the U.S., that's where also inflation will happen because your labor is higher. So as you kind of look at a global supply chain, you're trying to force things to happen so you can get it domestically. Well, that increases cost too.
So Kyle, the same kind of from the larger inflationary trend lines, because as far as I remember, even before I did my startup, PwC days itself, SAP had the big supply chain solution, and SAP was one of the leaders in that space. And now you are looking at also from the national security space. So I mean, those are things I would assume that there's more pressure that it has to happen, right? If there is something happening down in the war space or something like that. It can't delay. So looking through all of that, what's your take on the big picture of what's happening within the supply chain?
Yeah. So I actually, and listening to Jamie and Chuck talk about the impact of inflation on their business and how key that really is and supply chain pieces there. And I'm struck by, our core business is actually somewhat immune from some of that. I mean, obviously all the supply chain, work that we do in terms of providing visibility and things, obviously those users are heavily impacted. But if you look at, SAP or NS2 as a company, because, we're a software provider at our core, so we're not actually shipping anything around. I mean, and so in that sense, yeah, I mean, there's disruptions of people being remote and this and everything, but it's not nearly as day-to-day impacted in terms of our ability to do our, build our next product, to push them out and continue to innovate in that space, which I think actually gets somewhat to the some of the pervasive aspect of the inflation piece, because as Jamie and Chuck are talking about, it's much harder to build things upstream. But there also are certain industries. I mean, you look at, there's going to be record Wall Street bonuses this year. And, venture capitalists can't find enough people to take their money. There are certain industries that have done extraordinarily well. So you have this constraint of supply at the same time as you're getting this huge influx in certain industries and certain occupations who don't have enough, don't know what to do with their money because they have so much of it. So that drives up the inflation as well. So it's kind of wrong on both sides of the spectrum there, really. In terms of what that means in the DoD space, yeah, I mean, we have the same kind of supply chain tracking that through issues. The department is a little better insulated just because they're to your point, they've always planned for resiliency and they've always planned for just heavy sparing and things. The just-in-time aspects that happen in commercial, just because of the nature of the department, they tend to over purchase on the spares and those kind of things, just for kind of obvious reasons. So they have a little more resiliency there, but that only goes for so long.
So does the inflationary trends impact the software space also? I mean, are you seeing like would that also, because even though there's not a direct impact because the software development happens in a different way, but still the overall inflation, does it impact that?
I mean, certainly the increasing cost of personnel and I think Chuck hit this one is and particularly for us because we are we're US based, so our ability to manage those increasing costs is much more limited than core SAP or any kind of worldwide conglomerate. So yeah, I mean labor is our primary factor there. I mean, but again, as corporations, I mean large IT organizations have saved a lot of money on rent and power and real estate over the last couple of years too. So there is some kind of knock-on effects that are beneficial to the bottom line in that respect. It's a strange time we're in right now.
Yeah, well, I think that's that's been the word that has been used for quite some. Everybody thought this was a strange times we were living in maybe 2 years back, and it's I can't believe that we're still saying that, which this whole pandemic and the follow-up has been really, really strange for a lot of people. Which brings me to the whole question of innovation, because there's always a lot of interesting, really cool innovations happens during these challenges, and in a startup world, we always say it's like disrupting an existing industry is where the innovations happen. So Jamie, coming to you. Because UPS is a big organization, so there's always you have to keep your what they call the trains running or the day-to-day operations running. But when you're going through something like this, because I teach strategy and innovation in an MBA program as an adjunct faculty, and so we do case studies, and one of the things we always look at is, can a large organization be as innovative as a startup, right? I mean, there's always the challenge of keeping, like I said, the trains running. So what are you seeing within UPS, and how is UPS innovating, and what are some of the cool innovations that's happening? And I want to hear about what's happening within UPS, but also what you are seeing as the larger innovations in the larger supply chain space that you are excited about, you're seeing as that will stay in a long time.
Okay. Yeah, great question. What's so amazing is how quickly we did adapt, and we're on the front lines from the very beginning of COVID. You talk about innovation. So the logistical challenges that got created early on in the pandemic, we partnered with lots of public-private partnerships. That's what allowed some early acceleration to get some of these new logistical paths paved, quite honestly. And the other area I mentioned early on, working with public affairs, why that was so important for us, UPSers had to be designated as essential workers. Recall some cities had lockdowns, you couldn't even be on the street, where we're in perpetual peak. In order to get products delivered, it was absolutely critical we get that designation and be part of the process. The other aspect was recognizing where this was going, right? Certainly we saw the consumer behavior changing, going from commercial, delivering to large buildings to residents. The next aspect was this: through the development of the vaccine and other biologics, it became very important to connect very closely with those development facilities to ensure we understood characteristics about what was coming. What were those key manufacturing locations? Chuck talked quite a bit about location, location, location. When you're thinking about quick distribution, that really matters, as was getting insight into the temperature needs that would be required for some of those vaccines. I think for us, suddenly delivering equipment to all of our essential frontline workers, think about the amount of PPE, the personal protective equipment. We're in procurement. We had never bought masks before, not paper mask, not fabric mask, not mask with inserts, but we learned how to do it, and we did it very quickly and helped support the community. Jay, there was an interesting part to your question as well about innovation in the industry as also. And it's been several months now. UPS announced coordination. I think it's an outright acquisition of a company called Roadie. And that really speaks to this idea of just-in-time delivery and the utilization of vehicles throughout the industry. So those are some of the ways in which we're partnering today.
So you mentioned about the just-in-time delivery, and so I have a follow-up question, because we have heard about the last mile, solving the last mile problem, or I have heard that quite a lot. And what does that mean in UPS world? And so because we talk about drones and all that going to be, is there things that you can share with us within UPS that is that solutions you're looking at beyond the trucks, and what are some of the other things?
Yeah, the last mile delivery is a business that we've been in for all of our 100 years. UPS actually in 1907 started out as delivery from stores to homes. It is an absolute area where, with technology, partnerships, the advent of things like the AI and the drones, we actually had one of the first commercial deliveries of drones. We've delivered critical vaccines via drones. It's a continuous area of opportunity, and as well as a challenge, again, helped by the advent of additional technology.
So Chuck, it's kind of connected to that from the same perspective of innovation, right? I mean, you're part of a larger organization, but so I would say maybe as you defined as a startup, you probably are a little more flexible and faster in innovating, that you have a little more freedom than the larger organization. So what are some of the innovations you're seeing? And what are some of the things beyond your specific organization that you're excited about seeing?
So to build off Jamie, we actually work with UPS and passive cooling. So one of the things that's really kind of an evolution and really forced us all to be much more collaborative in all the different verticals, whether it's last mile delivery in the retail channels, or even wine. People wanted wine shipped to their houses, and using UPS's networks, with our solutions, which we call Vino. But it's been a really interesting thing where we can take something like wine that needs temp controlled, right? And it needs to be delivered at 50 degrees from the time that it leaves that warehouse to the time it actually gets to that consumer's door. We can do that now, not from air. That was traditional travel. Now you can do it on a drive basis, where it could take 5 days, and we can hold that temperature. So the technology that we're doing and using phase change material to do that is it's just remarkable what we're doing and collaborating with different industries. But it was just piggybacking off Jamie, because it's top of mind with me a lot. There's a lot of verticals that we work with UPS on.
So, again, one of the other things that we heard is like Amazon trying to do their own delivery and things like that. So is there are you guys looking at drones and other solutions, or are you looking at the UPSs of the world to do that innovation piece?
So we work with everyone, to be honest with you. It's you'll see different angles at this, where whether you're delivering drones or whatever, we're part of that whole solution. So we're not the solution, but we're a part of it. So we're designing things that could be passively cooled on a drone for maybe blood to be delivered out in Africa, where it's remote locations or things like that. We're working with people to shorten your supply chain down, where you want to deliver food. But everybody's trying to have this, what's already been solved kind of deal, to be that last miler. And everybody has different unique challenges with what they're doing. I've seen electric bikes, electric cars, no reefer. There's all sorts of things that are out there right now that everybody's really trying. I think it's forced us to have this sort of like a technological industrial revolution that's actually happened out of the pandemic.
So that's a great segue into following up with Kyle, because the technology becomes kind of the key piece, but it also, like Chuck was talking about, or Jamie was talking about, the drones, the scooters, all this, and tying it all together within the larger supply chain. What are the innovations that you're seeing from the technology perspective? And one of the audience, I'm surprised that audience questions came up so early. I mean, usually I give like 5 minutes, but so one of the audience questions that came up was, shortage problem seems to be something that's outside any of the panelists' company control. Is there any way they are being able to help with shortage or rerouting from other places? Specifically, how would SAP software assist an inventory manager? So I don't know if but I want to hear your larger perspective on the innovation, and then maybe this question.
Sure, no, it sounds good. Yeah, I mean, the biggest innovation I think that we're seeing across this is just the different types of data that we're pulling together and combining and analyzing together. If you think about traditionally how we do our supply chain systems and our procurement systems and in planning for fulfillment and all those sorts of things, we've always had to plan that around the world. There's that traditional kind of data sources, but what we've done more recently is pulling in more open source available data, whether this is social media data or weather data or things of that nature, and start to knit all those together so that you can capture the weather effects, you can capture COVID effects, you can capture political unrest, and make it so you get a much better prediction of what your supply chain impacts will be, and so we've had some pretty good results with that in terms of knitting those larger pieces together. And I mean, we're not alone in recognizing that, yeah, you ought to apply weather effects to your supply chain. I mean, but one of the things that's nice is because SAP is pretty well plugged into the existing supply chain data, being able to pull in those other effects is quite useful. And I mean, honestly, that integration is one of the things that really we do need, because it's an easy win. In the U.S. we lag behind the world a little bit in this respect. For example, in Germany, in the port of Hamburg, a few years back, I think it's the second largest container port in Europe. But they they did essentially an integration system over there. This was kind of pre-COVID, but it was just an IT project to integrate things. It was the shippers and the truckers and the guys in the port and all that kind of stuff to knit that together. And just by doing that, they ended up doubling their throughput. And it wasn't like they had to build anything. They didn't have to create anything new. They just said, well, let's just get smarter about how we plan with our data and how we figure out who's going to go where and how we optimize our operations there. And so, I mean, in the US, we really could use something like that right about now.
The specific question is there SAP coming out with new products or solutions based on what you're seeing out there and the data that will help, a better inventory management or, just in time that Jamie was talking about?
Yeah, and most definitely. So everything I'm talking about kind of gets rolled back in through the the overall kind of SAP product pipeline. If you're familiar on the SAP side, if you use like our Ariba network, that is these are getting plugged in there to make it so you can do your planning and purchasing decisions better. SAP TechEd actually was actually this week. There's still some interesting things that are rolling out there. So yeah, certainly, if you look SAP TechEd online, you can find all kinds of interesting things that we're doing that kind of around the space that I'm just talking about.
Cool. So, I just noticed the time and we have 10, 13 minutes and this has been really interesting. And, like I said, we usually don't get, audience questions so early. So Jamie, I want to get a couple of things from all of you, mostly from our student, next generation people who are coming in. So Jamie, starting, with you, what do you see? Because with all these changes, there's a sudden shift in, how, like Chuck mentioned about the Great Resignation and all of that, and people are. So what are some of the skill set that you are seeing, or what UPS are hiring for in the future? Because now, like I mentioned before, and every job has now some technology component. But at the same time, not everybody is, we are, Harrisburg University is a science and tech, and we try to encourage more women and minorities in STEM. So looking from all of that perspective, what are some of the skills that you are looking at from a hiring perspective? And how does UPS go about hiring? Is there process there, internships, where can students get some information around that? Or can you give us a big picture on those?
Absolutely. This is actually my favorite topic. Unlike Kyle, I realized what I loved the most was leading people and working with large groups and having that influence. So I would say a couple of things, right? From a college student perspective, as a student, we have the UPS jobs website up and available. We have jobs open right now for the peak season that coincide perfectly with the college schedule and the college timeline. We also have during school tuition reimbursement programs. They are available in some of our locations. Harrisburg Hub and the Harrisburg Airport are both eligible work locations for that. And it provides up to $25,000 in tuition, depending upon eligibility, which could be of great interest to some of your students. And as far as internship programs, absolutely incredibly proud of what we've done in the last year. In 2020, lots of discussion. Do we cancel our program? Do we go forward? And absolutely firmly put a stake in the ground and said, well, maybe we don't know what we're doing, but I bet some of these students do. And these rising seniors deserve this opportunity to have this once in a lifetime before you go into the world or onto business school or next school, to have this intern program. So we did, even in 2020, despite the difficulty in getting computers, getting laptops sent to homes. It was quite the ordeal, our own logistic challenge. And the feedback we got, the structure we put in the program, the networks we built were like none other. So we have a special student banner on our UPS Jobs website. And Jay, I can send that link to you if you want to share it with your audience.
Yep.
Yeah, we can do that. And I would say the most important thing is, as you hone your professional skills, also work on the soft skills. Think about networking, presentations, communication skills, and how you work across lots of different audiences. And everyone today talked about technology. So having the business fluency, think about where innovation is coming from. And one of the most important things of all is use your network to stay current.
Thank you, Jamie, and
Thank you.
look forward to sharing some of this information. So, Chuck, the same question, right? I mean, you are a local company, part of a bigger company. Where do you hire? What does that process look like? What are some of the skill set that the students should be acquiring, and from a technology perspective, and what's some of the advice you can give?
So, being based out of Fort Collins, Colorado, Otter that's where it was founded. It's actually founded by a serial entrepreneur that actually never went to school, believe it or not. So he supports schools. In fact, he is all about giving people chances and really kind of helping entrepreneurs to see their dreams come true. Part of our culture is that we actually, our mission is grow to give. So we really spend a lot of time with youth in college and high school to really promote that whole innovation cycle. But also it goes a little further than that. We are all guided by the principle of servant leadership. So we always are helping others before we help ourselves. And that's where we kind of come in. And I know personally, being there for 9 months now, I've spent time with high school students, I've spent time with college students, and really kind of helping them see what their future is. So we call it Opportunities. You can go out to our website, and it really kind of all disciplines, but our culture is so important because it's really got us through all these times. Otter is not that old compared to everybody else on this panel, obviously. We are, pretty young in terms of organization. But what's really interesting is we look at people that are very well-rounded human beings, because we can start from a really good foundation. And then we look for skill sets in particular around innovation, around technology. We are founded by an engineer, so any kind of engineering is always really good for us. And a lot of people that I hire, even in marketing, are coming from that technical side because they give it a different perspective. I really appreciate what Kyle was talking about, because you might love something, and I want to be something like computers. I want to work with technology that way, but you always come back to business, because if you have a holistic view of business, it'll teach you about margin. It'll teach you about how to go after that sale, or it'll teach you how to actually interact with other people. So I really encourage everybody to go to otterproducts.com, look for those opportunities. We're all otters. I'm just an otter pup because I'm new to the company, but absolutely go out and check us out.
Thanks, Chuck. And any information, like Jamie said, if you can, there's a link or something you can share, please. So Kyle, SAP NS2 is big, and NS2 specifically has all these requirements around security clearances and all of that. So I'm assuming the normal recruiting process is much longer, but what can you advise the students, and what are some of the skill set that you guys look for?
Sure. I first thought we have nothing nearly as catchy as Opportunities. So Chuck, I'm quite impressed there. But so I guess in terms of the skill set, and then there is the clearance aspects. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But what we really need is really two things. One is the ability to create something. I mean, so whether that is you're creating code, whether that's you're creating systems, whether that is you're just creating documentation, or you're just creating stories, or you're creating artwork. We need all those skills, but the point is you have to actually produce, and having a demonstrable way to show that you've done that, or your school projects, your portfolio, that is super key for us. And some of this is because as a primarily technology company, those things are easier to show. But that's the thing. We really want folks that can come in and create. And then the second is that ability to sell. And we're all business people at heart. We're all salespeople at heart. And for a job to be sustainable, you have to make sure that someone wants to purchase what you are creating. And it's good if you can help them see that. And so folks that can produce and then kind of sell what they've got, those are really the key skill sets we need there. We do have a pretty good internship program as well. So by all means, we'd love to get some more folks in there, both through NS2, but also SAP. That's certainly an option. What that means from a security standpoint, one of the nice things we do, there's 1,000 people in NS2 in the part of SAP here. There's only 700 or 800 people that actually have clearances, so there are parts that you can get in without being cleared. One of the things we use interns for is a pipeline for that. So if it's something where you have a desire to serve the government, it's an easy way to get that clock started while you're an intern, and then we can roll you on to other more interesting work once you've, because it takes a year or so to get through that clearance pipeline. So it sort of depends. It's not mandatory, but it does open up a very interesting domain to work in if you're able to go through the process.
Yeah, that's great to know. And again, share any links or anything with us. So we are almost at the end of the time. So I really want to thank, Kyle, Jamie, Chuck for, an incredible conversation. And, I'm sure we could go on for another 30 minutes. And, because there are questions that's also popping up. But hopefully, some of these questions, maybe we'll bring you guys back maybe when the inflation goes the other way and starts lowering. That will be an interesting conversation to have. So I look forward to having a follow-up. But I want to have give you guys a chance on a last word. So anything that you guys want to share, a quick minute or under, but also what's the one advice you would give to leaders out there who are frustrated with the whole supply chain, and what's the one thing you would say to them? So we'll start with Jamie. And
thank you, and thank you for this incredible opportunity. So this has been so enlightening. I think the one bit of advice is the same for all of us: is stay flexible. We didn't have a playbook when we started a year and a half ago, and we're learning a lot. Now we have more technology, better processes, recognizing that we can cope very well with these types of drastic changes lays a fantastic foundation for where we're going to go collectively, I think, as organizations and society. Very promising.
Thank you, Jamie. So
Thank
Chuck, same last
So
word.
my advice is don't be afraid to fail. We have a term at Otter, and I've actually used this many years. It's fail forward. Learn from your failures. If you don't push the extremes, you'll never learn where you could actually grow and find innovation that really doesn't exist. So, persevering through some adversity, you're going to get walls all the time. How you handle those walls and persevere through them are going to be your character builders. And, that's really what determines success. And a lot of times where it's not, hey, when everything's going well, I think a lot of people can do success, right? They can see success that way. It's when it's not going well, or you don't have a playbook, to Jamie's point. How do you handle those things? And that's my advice: is persevere through adversity and really kind of go with your passion. Focus on your passions.
Thank you, Chuck. Kyle?
Yeah, so just thank you so much for having me. This was a blast. Really do appreciate the time. And I mean, the biggest piece of advice about kind of getting through this is keep in mind that this is going to pass. I mean, there will be an end in sight at some point, and just make sure that you're treating your employees and your partners and your customers well now, because you want to be sure that you don't burn all your bridges here just trying to survive. So yeah, we look forward to getting on the far side of this, Homer.
Well, thanks again. So we put this recording out there, and we try to put snippets, and this has been an incredible last few words. Like Jamie talked about staying flexible, Chuck talked about failing forward, and Kyle talked about being kind to the employees at this point. All three is incredibly valuable across, I think, whatever leadership positions you are, or even whatever student, faculty, all of whatever roles you have. So thanks again, all of you, and hope to have all of you in a future panel. And also, Kyle is already partnering with us and working on projects. So I hope we can get other things partnered with Jamie and UPS and Chuck on some of the CIE's projects. So thanks again.